Good afternoon again, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. As we begin our meeting today, I'd like to thank and acknowledge Impact Employment Solutions as this month's meeting sponsor and Rotarian Gary Murphy. Where is Murph here? See you there. At this time, I'd like to ask Pat Sheehan to come to the podium, please, to deliver a reflection and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pause for a moment to give thanks. Dear God, Toledo in July has a sweet rhythm to it that we've come to know and love. Fireworks, the women's golf tournament, mud hen baseball, family reunions and cookouts. We thank you for these simple pleasures. Today we are especially thankful to have Tim Tegge with us so that we can learn more about the wonderful work he and his organization do with people in our community. And finally, as we conduct our daily lives in our workplaces, our homes, and our community, please keep us centered so that all we say and all that we do brings honor and glory to your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thanks. Please be seated. Thank you, Pat. Next, I'd like to ask our member and membership sales director, Karen Stramel, to come to the podium and lead us in the four-way test.
Okay, if you'll repeat after me. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Second, is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. All right, does anyone have any guests that they would like to introduce today that they brought with them for the program? Please use the mic, the floor mic Zach has.
Yes, President Scott. My guest isn't with me because he's our speaker today.
Okay.
And
Excellent.
Tim Tegge, I've tried to get involved in Rotary for a few months now, and we've known each other for several years, so here's his invitation.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
President Scott. I'm here with our guest, Mr. Lane Montz.
That happens every time. Every time something happens.
They just like, oh,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't mean anything about Rotary. We're great here. Mr. Lane Montz, who is the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great. Welcome, Lane.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and President Scott. Today I have with me a friend, Mike Horvath from Let's Build. They make beds for impoverished people in the community. So Mike, welcome to Rotary.
Great.
Thank you,
Welcome,
everyone.
Mike. Thanks for coming.
Hi everyone, I'm Allison Coor, President of Toledo Rotary, and I brought with me Emily Desmond, Director of Communications at ABLE.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison. Welcome, Emily.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. My name is Summer Riesler. I'm with Neuter Construction. I have with me Lance Wilkerson. He's the Director of Donor Relations for ProMedica Metro Foundation.
Excellent. Welcome, Lane.
Thank you, everyone. I have two guests today. I have Christine Birch with LifeWise Academy Toledo. She's a program director. And I have Mitch Borst with Priority Wealth Partners. He's financial planning and long-term care planning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome, Christine and Mitch. Thank you. And I also have a special guest today. My mother has joined us again for today's program, Dr. Ada Sue Hinshaw. She came for the program. Thank you. She came for the program. She's low-sighted as well, so she wanted to hear our speaker here today. So welcome. All right, now I'd like to ask our club executive director, Jackie Bugай, to please come to the podium to give us a few updates on membership.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all today. I see some of you took my challenge from a few weeks ago seriously about sitting at a new spot every week, so kudos to those of you who did that. If you didn't, I encourage you to do that so you can meet some new faces. Again, a friendly reminder that a new Rotary year means new committees, and so most of you have taken that seriously as well to sign up for committee selections. But in the month of August, you will see a busy club calendar with many committee meetings scheduled, community services, disability, international, those sort of things. So please find your way to a committee if you haven't already, or lean on me to help you do that if you need a little assistance. And then the last two quick things is dues. If you have not received your dues membership invoice, please let me know. You'll be seeing reminders hit your inbox on August 1st. And then lastly, we have scheduled our first new member orientation of the Rotary year for September 10th. We are trying a breakfast format this year, so we're hoping that works well for some of your calendars. And we're going to be hosting it here at the Glass City Center. So for those of you who are new members, if you've joined May, June, July, you'll be seeing the invitation come to your inbox as well. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. I want to stress too that the new member orientations are really helpful for those of you who've joined the club. It really helps you understand kind of the structure of our club, the structure of our district, the structure of Rotary International, the things that we believe in, right, like the four-way test, and also the things you can get involved in, whether it's committees or other projects, things like that. So it's really a great opportunity. You can come for a little while, come for the whole thing. You don't have to stay for the whole thing, but just long enough so you can get some information about our club and our club's foundation, everything else. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. All right, let's get to today's program. Tim Tegge is the Executive Director of the Sight Center of Northwest Ohio, a trusted nonprofit that empowers independence and enriches the lives of people who are blind and visually impaired. Tim has a biology degree from Bowling Green State University. His experience with the Sight Center has been extensive, first as a low vision client and then as a two-term board member. And since 2015, he has been a member of the staff. In November of 2022, he was named Executive Director, becoming only the third leader in the organization's 100-year history to have a permanent vision loss. Tim often speaks about his personal experiences, the impact of vision loss, and how the Sight Center can empower independence and enrich the lives of people learning to live with blindness and low vision. Everyone, please welcome Tim Tegge.
Thank you very much. On the way over here today, I was a little nervous, and I took the Uber over here, and my Uber driver just serendipitously reminded me of the old saying, if you're, when you're nervous and you're speaking in front of people, just picture them in their underwear. I just try to picture my audience. So, but her saying that to me made all the difference. It's like, okay, I'm relaxed now if my driver thought to say that this morning. So, but thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to talk a little bit today about my own personal experience with vision loss, tell you about the Sight Center and some of our services and history. I want to talk a little bit about our other senses, and then tell you a story or two, and then wrap it up from there with some question and answer. But first of all, I was born the youngest of 4 kids growing up in Hamilton, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. And I always say that when they reached perfection, they stopped having other children. So, much to my older siblings' chagrin. But speaking of my older sibling, my oldest brother Al, he's 9 years older than me, and when he was in grade school, he started having trouble seeing the chalkboard at the time, and kids have trouble seeing chalkboards these days too because they don't exist. But they didn't know what it was. They thought he'd gotten some bird droppings in his eyes, something called histoplasmosis. Ended up not being that. He went to his eye doctor, then to some specialists. Ended up at Johns Hopkins, and they found out that it was a what he had was a condition called Stargardt's disease. It's a genetic condition. Its other name is early onset macular degeneration. And so the brochures that I sprinkled around the tables, that's not a bad print job if you look at the front cover. It's meant to depict central vision loss. So macular degeneration is central vision loss. Stargardt's disease is just genetically predisposed to start earlier in life. So once they knew that was the case with my brother Al, then they knew that genetically it could happen to any of the other kids as well. And 9 years later, when I was in grade school looking at the same chalkboards, I started having problems seeing the board as well. So they knew what it was at that point. The interesting thing is back in the day, it was called juvenile macular degeneration. And what we know as age-related macular degeneration was called senile macular degeneration. So I don't think either group liked so they changed it to age-related and early onset. So, but the end result growing up was that I never legally have driven, never got a driver's license. For the lawyers in the room, the statute of limitations has run out, I believe. So, but I had great parents. We had a great backyard, big acre of land, and a lot of kids in the neighborhood. And there was something about having my older brother Al that in my life that he went to college. He became a teacher. He got married and raised a family. He lived in Japan with his family for 3 years. He retired. He loves retirement, and he's a great grandfather. He lived life, and I think without even realizing, I only thought about this in the last few years, that how much that made my life different, in terms of seeing him just live life. We're all dealt the hand we're dealt, and it's how you play it that makes the difference. And he showed me to just live life and do what you want to do, and so that was important to me. And I like to bring up my family and Al in particular because I like to think that the Sight Center in the services we provide can be that big brother to those that are experiencing vision loss for the first time. Many people don't know anybody else, or they're not aware that somebody else might be going through the same experience when their eye doctor tells them your vision's no longer correctable and you're going to have to learn to live with low vision or blindness, or you're going to have to give up your driver's license, or many people even give up their careers because they can't figure out how to be the teacher they were without their vision, or how to be the nurse without their vision. And so I think it's interesting for the Sight Center to in a way take on that role. We've been around for almost 102 years now. We were founded in 1923 as the Toledo Society for the Blind. And back 100 years ago, it was much more about the social and recreational activities for Toledo area people who were blind. And what I learned from our 100th anniversary 2 years ago was that our mission has remained very similar throughout those 100 years, to empower independence and enrich the lives of people who are blind or visually impaired. How that's played out over the decades has changed based on society, technology, resources, need, all of that. But the mission lives on, and the mission has continued. 100 years ago, it was more social, recreational. We get into the World War II effort, and there was still that going on, but there was also the war effort, and blind workers assembling shipping cartons for waterproof shipping containers for the war effort. That led into some of the industry, the work industries in the 60s and 70s of having sheltered workshops for workers who were blind, assembling auto parts and different contracts that were established. That led into some radio reading services was another era where we were broadcasting with a huge team of volunteers, broadcasting the local papers and reading novels and things for so people who were blind could listen to them on special devices. In the more recent decades, we've been much more about our low vision clinic and blindness and low vision rehabilitation. And those are more individualized. They're, especially with the rehabilitation, it's the things that help somebody do all the things they do in a day without the vision that they're used to. So I want to touch on just a couple of the services, and if you want to read along, I won't notice. But it's in the brochure. Well, I might notice out of the corner of my eye, because my peripheral's still pretty good, so I can spot a paper clip out of the corner of my eye and then trip over a chair, so it's a weird paradox. But, so our low vision clinic is the one thing that that anybody who comes to the Sight Center for our services, if they have remaining vision, we start with a low vision exam. And this is, we have optometrists who work for us who have their own practices, but at the Sight Center, they're doing low vision optometry. They're not trying to do what they would do in their own practice or what your eye doctor would do in terms of eye health, eye pressure, your prescription. Our eye doctors are here to look at what vision is remaining and how do we make the most out of that vision, especially with things like magnification, lighting, and filters, contrast, so those things. Because when you're living with a vision impairment, you use a different part of your eye often, then that can get exhausting. It can be tiring on the eye muscles and on the brain. So anything we can do to ease that, if there's amber-colored lenses or rose-colored glasses. A lot of people look at the world through rose-colored glasses at the Sight Center. So, but those things that can make your eyesight more comfortable and get the most out of it. That's the kind of stuff that happens in our low vision clinic. Some of the other services we provide include activities of daily living. Basically, anything you'd want to do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. Brushing your teeth, preparing your meals, managing your medications, overseeing your finances. Just because you have vision loss doesn't mean that you want somebody else to come in and look at your numbers and all your finances or that kind of stuff. So there are tools, there are devices, but there are just a lot of techniques to help people learn to do those things. For example, how would you tell the salt and pepper, from one another if you couldn't see what they were? So there's a little tip about putting a rubber band around one of them, and that way you always know which one is which. Somebody told me just recently, they said, trying to put toothpaste on the toothbrush, it's just such a hassle. And then they were told, well, it's your toothpaste, just squirt it in your mouth and you don't have to worry about it and you don't waste as much toothpaste. And I've mentioned that to people, and so many people that are blind or low vision do that. And I thought, what? I never thought of that. So don't use my toothpaste at my house. Or it's on you if you do. So all of the things, all the things you do, cooking. We worked with a client who loved to cook, and when she lost her vision, she just really lost her ability to do that. And over the course of the year or two we worked with her, she got that joy back. And there's quite a few techniques. Then starting with, how do you organize your pantry? How do you identify your herbs and spices? And not everybody reads Braille. In fact, only about 10% of people who are blind read Braille. So there's other ways to do that. There are safety knives, there are finger guards, there are cut-proof gloves where you can, prevent accidents a little more. There's high contrast cutting boards, black on one side, white on the other. Anything like that that can help bring the joy back, help keep the safety, and help make those things, more easier to do on a daily basis when you can't see the way you used to see. I was just telling at the table a friend of mine who lost her vision to the same condition I have, but she lost it in her 30s. So she, was in the military. She drove. Her eyesight was great. And then as she started losing her vision, putting on makeup was a real stressor for her, because she couldn't tell if she was putting it on the way that she was used to. I never thought of that. And that really affected her confidence in going out in public, at feeling as attractive as she wanted to feel. And so, the Sight Center, we work with you wherever you are. We meet you where you are. Somebody like me has had 50 years to live with my vision impairment. Some people have, 50 days or less. And so they come into the Sight Center, sometimes very angry, sometimes very sad and down, but we meet them where they are and try to develop individualized plans that can help them start to do more of the things they love to do. One of the other key services we provide is orientation and mobility. That's learning how to navigate your apartment, your neighborhood, your workplace more safely. Bus routes, if you take the bus, how to do those more confidently, more safely. The white cane is often part of that training, but it's not required. So we teach white cane training, and that becomes a mobility tool. Where 100 years ago, the blind cane was more about like a sign that I have a vision impairment. And today it still serves as a sign or a symbol, but it also is very much a tool for safety and a tool for mobility. To be able to tell when there's a step coming down, before you actually fall down those steps, or to tell when there's a curb, or to go, when you're going from a sidewalk to a gravel section, just those things that can keep you safer, more confident, and more nimble and mobile. Technology, assistive technology is another key area that has just been blossoming lately with, I'd say since the iPhone was created, it's really transformed access and opportunities for people, with vision impairments and with a lot of other disabilities as well. But we teach people how to use their smartphones, their tablets, desktops, specialty apps. There's all kinds of things that are available. I've used for over 20 years now software that magnifies it helps me magnify the computer screen, and it reads to me. And the older I've gotten, the more I rely on the listening part than the reading part. But I do have an interesting story about that, because when you listen to stuff all day, it makes typos really annoying. And so text message, we're gonna do a little video at the Site Center about this, because people don't use grammar real well anymore. They use THX instead of thanks, and all the acronyms and all the shortcuts and lack of punctuation. When you're listening to a text message like that, it's exhausting. So if you don't think punctuation matters, think about the Site Center. But yeah, because your brain's juggling like, what was that? So, so I've stayed full-time employed my whole career because of software, thanks to the Site Center, thanks to some support from the state agency, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. But it really made it easy for me to stay on top of emails and documents and workflow and all of that. But at the same point, there's some interesting things that happen. Like I was on a website for a major health organization down in Southern Ohio, and I was just looking for something, and I heard the word Heath Care, and I'm like, okay, I gotta find, where is that? So I zoomed in, and I'm like, and one of their main navigation buttons said Heath Care and not Health Care. And then I scrolled to the bottom to see the Contact Us page, or who the contact was, and I found a media relations person. So I sent an email and said, thought you might want to know your main navigation button says Heath Care and not Health Care. And she got back with me in 15 minutes and said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I said, no problem, my screen reader caught it. I'm just picturing that Monday morning staff meeting where this blind guy in Toledo caught a typo. Heath Care, really? So anyway, so anything technology, and the technology today with the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, if you haven't heard about those, they're not just for people like me. They're made for general public use, and they're really serving as a valuable tool for people who are blind or low vision to be able, because there's three elements of like not seeing well. One is objects, what are the things in front of me? The other is print, how to get print into speech. But the third is context, and to be able to know that this is a menu in front of me and I don't have to listen to every single word. It can start to give me just the appetizers if I want to hear just the appetizers. If I want to hear what hamburgers they have because I like a good burger, I can hear what types of burgers without even having to hear what all's on them. In a couple years ago, it was just text. It would convert print to text, and you'd have to slog through it. I'd end up ordering the first thing that I heard because it was exhausting. Or I'd order last and let other people kind of give me some ideas. But so that's the world of assistive technology. It's really opening up opportunities, and it's going to change rapidly as we move ahead. The other area that we do a lot of work in now recently is with job development, job coaching, helping people who are blind or low vision get a job, retain a job, advance, get a new job with job coaching, job development, career exploration. We're doing more of that these days as well. So those are some of the individualized services we provide. At a different level, we try to make information like presentations like this, health fairs, just being out and about in the community with information, hosting support groups when possible, having experiential events so that people can engage their other senses and maybe get a little greater empathy about what their loved one might be going through. That's kind of that next level. And then the third way we help is advocacy. And if there's something that's going to affect the world of blindness and low vision in Northwest Ohio, we're by mission going to speak about it. If there's transportation topics, we want to be part of those. If the state is going to change some of their requirements for eligibility for a program that affects people who we serve, then we're going to speak up about that as well. And that's kind of what we do. And I know I could go into a lot more depth about this, so I'm going to stick around afterwards if anybody wants to ask any questions, about what we do more specifically. Where we do that, we serve all of Northwest Ohio, 18 counties from, Bryan, Defiance, all the way down to Lima, over to Sandusky, the parts of southeast Michigan as well. We also have a staff person down in central Ohio for the last decade who's been, quietly providing in-home services for 10 years. So we do have quite a broad footprint, and the vast majority of that footprint is rural. So we put over 40,000 miles a year providing in-home services to people like me who can't drive, and getting to the site center might not be a big hassle if you live in Toledo, but if you live in Paulding County, it's a big deal. So we make it a priority to go where the people are. I want to talk a little bit about our other senses and the brain. I think and I've been thinking about this in the last few years. The brain is such a complex organ, and the eye is like the highest the optic nerve has the highest concentration of nerve endings and complexity than any other part of the body. And so you think about those deprivation experiments they do where they put somebody in a room where you can't hear or see anything, and within 15 minutes the brain starts hallucinating or creating images. And I think about that because of how much we take in with our eyes. And if you take the eye out of the equation or you diminish that, the other senses don't just magically get better. I can hear better. They become more important. And just like anything that's important, they develop and grow stronger. And so I think that's an interesting thing, that people who are losing their vision may not even be aware of these things going on. And so the sense of smell, the sense of touch, the sense of taste, it's fascinating when you meet somebody who's been blind for years. And there's one person in particular, when I shake her hand, it feels like she's putting every ounce of her attention into that touch. And it's kind of powerful to we just shake hands so easily and so casually. But if you think of somebody that's just trying to get to know you through a handshake and paying that much attention, it's pretty profound. Or we grow my wife grows Asian lilies. I don't grow them. I just smell them when I walk by them. But there's one time a year, and it just passed, where the Asian lilies are blooming, and I don't care if there's pollen on my nose or whatever, but to just take in that scent, it's like I'm just trying to imprint it into my memory forever. I was talking with folks over at the Toledo Alliance for the Performing Arts about music and blindness, and they said it's proven like people who are blind have such a more profound that music has such a more profound effect, because And it almost feels like it dances around you. You can hear it. You can. It's spatial. It's not just sounds. It's spatial. You feel it in your body and things like that. So the other senses are pretty darn cool. And but the eyesight, I think, is the one that we typically use the most. And I bring that up because I want to tell this other story, which a couple of you may have heard me talk about this before. But 5 or 6 years ago, I was having a glass of red wine with my wife, and by the way, clear glasses disappear in our house because if I put water in a clear glass on a table, I can't see it, and I end up breaking them all. So we do have like blue glasses in our house, except for wine glasses. I have to keep them full of red wine so that I can see the contrast. So if I'm ever having wine with you, just remember that. So my wife and I were sitting out on our patio in the summer and enjoying a glass of, Cabernet or something like that. And I made a face when I took a sip, and my wife Jane said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "There's a fruit fly in my wine." And she said, "How do you know that?" And I said, "I can smell it." And she's like, "No way." And she grabs my glass and she goes, "There's no fruit fly in there." And I said, "Yes, there is, I guarantee you." And I said, so I handed it back to her, and she turned it, and she went, "Oh my gosh, there was one tiny little fruit fly there." And she said, "You can't tell me that you can smell a fruit fly." And I said, "Well, not when they're like flying around, but I said, when they land in red wine, they do something. It's not as good." And I just assumed, I don't know how many people get fruit flies in their wine, but I just assumed that everybody could tell that, or that, and it was no pun intended, but it was an eye-opener moment for me where I realized, wow, I've had my vision impairment for, 50 years, and without even realizing it, I listen more. I have to listen more. I have to remember phone numbers or remember things more. And it made me realize, there's a lot of people out there losing some sense, and they're not even aware that these other things are starting to grow stronger. And so I like to bring that up because, as I mentioned, people come in angry, down, and sad and lonely, and not that telling them my fruit fly story is gonna, make them smile even, because. But that sensitivity or that awareness to say, be on the lookout for something that is emerging. While something else is declining, other things are going to emerge, and at least be aware of them. And some of them can be quite enjoyable. I got to play music Saturday at the Glass City Metro Park for the Disabled and Proud Fest. It was the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I'm a singer-songwriter by hobby. That's my night and weekend job, and I got to play for an hour there. And what was interesting is I realized just a couple years ago that I probably wouldn't be a songwriter if it weren't for my vision impairment. I'd probably play music. I would enjoy music, but my ADD and my I probably would never have just sat and finished my first song. I would have just gone on to the next thing, or hopped in a car and whatever, or the visual world would have just kept me intrigued. But what I realized is, being in the passenger seat with so many cool people, I get to hear some really good stories, and the visual world out there is kind of boring, no offense intended there, but so I tend to go in my mind more, in thoughts and stories and ideas, and then just the patience, or having to sit and wait for somebody to pick you up, or waiting at the bus station. There's downtime so something like songwriting came about and felt like the perfect thing to do. So the fact that I don't think I would have been a songwriter if it hadn't been for my vision impairment, and that's probably one of the biggest joys of the last 20 years of my life, is just writing music and getting to perform songs for people. So I bring that up because, and I'd like to close here and then answer any questions you might have, but as leaders in the community, as professionals, as business leaders, be aware of that when you meet people or interview or look at candidates or whatever it is, to look at what is emerging as well, and not what's missing. And many of you probably already do that, and I'm not trying to preach, but just to plant a seed because we're going to plant it. We're going to keep planting it on the people we serve. And I think it's going to be really cool when all of us start to look, no matter what the thing that's diminishing in each of us, that we start to look for those things that are emerging and growing as a result of it. And so it's a pleasure to have spoken here today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you want me to get more in depth on some of the services or whatever, I'd be happy to do that. But I thank you for your time.
Tim, thanks for your talk today. We appreciate it. I'm actually going to ask you the first question from the microphone here. So Rotary International likes to talk about Rotarians as being people of action, which we are. And so we have a community services committee and different committees that engage in service projects. I was just curious if there's anything that the Rotarians should be aware of that your organization does in which they can volunteer time, get involved in, and assist your organization.
One of the things that we've got coming up that you could promote is our Designer Purse Bingo fundraiser with the Sylvania Lions Club. We've been doing that for the last couple of years. But one of my goals, we haven't done as much in the last decade or so in terms of those types of activities, but it's a big goal of mine, not only to provide the rehabilitation services, but to start doing more where we give people that we serve opportunities to engage with one another with some of that social, recreational stuff that we did 100 years ago. So we've been working, talking with the museum about doing some art projects. I just spoke with somebody Saturday about tandem bicycling for people who are blind, in the back. Or maybe not. I ride a bike. That's the weird thing. I ride a bike, and people are like, how does he? Is he faking? So we'll definitely be in touch, because there's more of these things that I want us to be doing to create those opportunities, those outings, those day trips, that kind of stuff. We're not there yet. We're starting to have a lot more of those conversations, but a lot of that came out of our 100th anniversary and what we used to be, and how important it is to have the skill building, that individualized skill building on one side, but the other side of that coin is when you get to meet somebody like I had my brother Al, that changes the energy when it's like, wait, I'm not alone in this. So-and-so's going through it too. It makes it a little easier, and I think the more we can have some of those types of activities, the better we'll be.
Thank you, Tim, so much. So this is Julia Hage over here. We
By
reconnected
the way,
earlier.
Where are you speaking
I'm
from?
right here.
Straight?
I'm right in your spot.
Okay, good.
There you go. Is that better? There we go.
It's weird when there's speakers.
I
You
know.
hear the speakers, but not the speaker.
The person, right?
So-
Exactly. No, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. Thank you for bringing all of this today. First of all, your comedic timing is just superb. Second of all, the information you've shared is incredible. And back a few years ago, Disability Services Committee from the Rotary had the opportunity to come on site and to actually learn more about what you all do. And while we were there, a story was told about how the family members and loved ones of the individuals who are, having their new journey with their loss of sight, what the burden is for both the individual and their family member when it comes to traveling in, and the amount of time and the time off work and all of that, and how the in-home care can really support and sort of change that whole opportunity. So if you could speak to that a little bit, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I live down in Bowling Green, and even getting from Bowling Green to Toledo and getting somebody to drive me there if my wife's busy. Back when I was a client, you got to take half a day or a full day because the service we provide are a little different. So we tell people to expect 3 hours in that first appointment. The low vision exam, the functional evaluation, and all of those things we count on about 3 hours. Beyond that, though, everything that we can be done, in the home. And I want to thank the Rotary Foundation for the grant that we got, because it helped us get some of those devices that gave us more updated tools and the kits that we take into the homes. But that's important, especially because not everybody has a support system that will take time out of their day to get them somewhere. We're starting to see a lot more services available in counties, transportation, health-related transportation, especially through senior centers and things like that. So that's been very helpful. But our ability to take the show on the road, I think, is even more important.
Thank you. And also, I do own a tandem bicycle if you ever want to go for a bike ride. So you give me a call, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, Tim, Max Reddish. I'm right at your 12. First off, I didn't exactly understand the joke and why it was so funny about envisioning your audience in their underwear, because it wasn't immediately obvious to me that you were limited sight. I get it now. Very funny. Secondly, I imagine someone's monitoring this nationally, but I was wondering if you could speak at all about how Toledo's doing as a whole for the accessibility for those with limited vision. How are we ranking? Are we doing any good over here?
I'm not aware of ranking specifically, but in general, Toledo is fabulous with accessibility, disability awareness. The role that the Ability Center has taken in leading many of those efforts, the city of Toledo. I just think there's a dialogue that goes on in Toledo that I don't hear of in a lot of other places, a lot of other cities especially, where it's front and center. I mean, as the museum is renovating and doing their reinstallation here in the next couple of years, that's like top of mind. Other major organizations, the zoo, I mean, all of the big institutions in Toledo, it's top of mind, and we are engaged with them, and they're reaching out to make accessibility and accommodations, from the ground up, to be part of the conversation. And I think, when you think about stuff that's like, I see more people taking the ramps, like the nice gradual ramps, than the stairs these days. And anything where, a font can be a little easier to read on a sign in a public facility, we all benefit from that. So I think there's things that we all will benefit from when we have those conversations, and Toledo is really doing well in that, on that topic.
Hi, Tim. Carol Sopcich. We also chatted for a few minutes before the program today. My question is a real easy one for you. Do you still have your retail store, and what kind of things do you sell to help people who are starting to lose their sight?
Thank you. I totally forgot to mention that. Yes, we do have we do have a retail store for products that help people who are blind or low vision. It is creatively called The Shop at the Sight Center. So. But yeah, that's one cool thing, because the other services we provide are kind of your rehab. You have to have an appointment and kind of that medical model to a certain extent. But the shop is really cool because you can stop in any time we're open, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and see what's available. We have hundreds of magnifiers, lighted magnifiers, different strengths, different. There's all kinds of different types for. There's even types that you can set down if you happen to have a tremor, say Parkinson's or something, where you can set it on, and it's a fixed distance, so you don't need to hold it. There are different lights, lights for task lighting. There's talking gadgets. We have a whole kitchen, and the shop is set up in a functional apartment at the Sight Center. We had that designed when we built our building 18 years ago. So it gives people a really good chance to see how contrast with a table setting can really make a difference. How we don't have red wine in the wine glasses, but we can simulate. Clocks, high contrast clocks, talking timers, CCTVs, which are these digital magnifiers, which really help you read mail and things like that. Large print bingo cards, large dice, not large dice like the fuzzy kind on your, but you can still use them for bunco and things like that. But and there's some playing cards that are really cool. Playing cards are hard, just the white, the contrast, all the night, the jacks and the queens, they all start to get busy and then it's harder to see. But there's some cards that are really stripped down to just solid black, solid red with really bold letters and symbols. And so if you're in the neighborhood, I encourage you, just if you're even just curious, to stop on in and see what the shop offers. And all of it's online as well at shopattheshop.org, or the Site Center's website. You can get to it from there too.
Good afternoon, Tim. My name's Amy. We've not met, so I'm like 5'6". I've got shoulder-length brown hair. I'm a Caucasian woman in her late 30s, and I'm wearing a sleeveless olive green blouse. Hello.
Thank you.
No, that's a practice. Before I have my question, I want to shout out to one of your staff, Natalie Long, who has been helpful every time I have a student who uses Braille. She's been great about helping me get scripts and musical materials translated into Braille for my students. So Natalie's fantastic.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
So my question is, a disability advocate friend of mine said, if you live long enough, we're all going to need accessibility services. And so this is an issue that if it doesn't affect us yet, it will. So what is a lift that you suggest any layperson, any typical citizen engage in terms of practices that we incorporate into our daily lives, or small acts of advocacy that we can take advantage of when we're finding opportunity?
Regarding the tip, I would say learn the technology. Like, really get to know your iPhone and some of the other features, or your Android. One of the American Optometric Association, they're one of their best practices is when somebody is diagnosed with permanent vision loss, is to recommend that they start getting services like we offer right away, even while they're still getting their eyes treated, if that's possible. Because the sooner you learn those skills, the more time you'll have to master them, the better you'll get at them, the more comfortable you'll be with them. As vision deteriorates, and the number of people losing their vision is projected to double by 2050 because of aging and health-related conditions. Diabetic retinopathy is about on an 80% increase. So I would say, if it's like, well, I can see my phone, at least start exploring and start seeing what other things the phone can do. And we're big fans of like having people experience. We've had blindfold events, dark dinners, and we don't do it to say this is what blindness is like. It's much more to say, start engaging your other senses, and what would it be like if I couldn't see and I had to have dinner at the table? It just really starts to increase some empathy as well, I think, and a little more understanding of our fellow human beings that are going through different situations like that.
Thank you.
Hi, Tim. This is Heather Gallant with the 577 Foundation.
Heather.
It's good to see you again.
Same here.
So I wanted to ask, that was a little bit, Amy and I did not plan this at all, but that was a little bit of the individualized, what can we each do? My question is more from a community standpoint, from an institutional standpoint. We've got several leaders of institutions in the room. What are the top two main things that you find annoying that institutions don't currently do that we could be doing to make it a more welcoming environment for you and your clientele?
Most people do this well, but there's some where, like, email invitations to events, when they're put into a image, like, screen readers don't read that. So, like, if I get an email and it's a cute, flowers or balloons, and it's got the print in the picture, then I have to like zoom in and try to figure out what it says. So don't do that. Or do that, but like put the text in there as well. I think that's a big one. I think there's just engage in the conversation, because I'll give you an example. One person's accommodation could be another person's barrier. Down in Bowling Green, the bank I go to, I have to get down on my knee to type in, into the ATM machine. You go to elevators, and a lot of times they're low, and for very good reasons. But a picture a 6 foot tall, 75-year-old person who's, bending over is harder. So I don't bring that up to complain about elevators or ATMs, but just that as we design something for one group, be aware that can also be a barrier to somebody that can't see well.
Thank you.
Tim, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate your inspirational story, as well as obviously the very, very good work that your organization does. And we as Rotarians love to hear more information about things that make an impact in our community. So thank you. In appreciation for you coming to speak, as I told you, I'm going to give you a book for which you have assistive devices, luckily, to be able to read. But it's a book called Historical Tales of Toledo. It was written by one of our past presidents, Clint Mock. So. Also, we're going to make a donation in your name to the Polio Plus Fund, which is Rotary International's effort to eradicate polio from the face of the planet. So again, thank you for coming today and speaking. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent. Join us next Monday, August 4th, when we hear from fellow Rotarians who have published books. We're going to have an author's little speakers event. Julia Hage, the new chair of our program committee, she will be facilitating a panel discussion with 3 of our members. Also, we'd like to invite all members to attend Coffee Connection this Friday at 8 a.m. when we meet at House of Coffee. We've switched it up downtown on Madison Avenue. This is a great way to start the workday with some networking and some fellowship with your fellow Rotarians. There are no committee meetings today. Everyone, please go out and unite some folks for good. We are adjourned.